Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy. This is in the month of May 2024, and this is when we celebrate moms, and so we are doing a fertility issue podcast today. And this fertility issues can be anything from viability of the ova. And while I say this is not an all-inclusive podcast that's 8 hours long that's going to go into the heavy details of each condition. We're going to cover some bases today. But viability of the egg itself or the ova is huge, and there are a couple things that will certainly affect it, like PCOS and endometriosis. There are some other minor conditions as well. But for most of the ladies out there, it's going to be some nutritional deficiencies that are going to be the big deal. And even with PCOS, we typically see that as a deficiency situation as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And endometriosis is deficiencies that are now resulting in autoimmune type effects, and so those things need to be controlled as well. And we'll find diet do quite well. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that in just a moment. We're also going to be going through abortions or traumas, like multiple abortions that may be damaging to the tissues of the uterus, and maybe there's other things going on that we're going to get into to try to help that situation as well and give some ideas and some direction. And then lastly, things like birth control pills and accutane are going to be big things that can cause havoc with fertility. And so, again, this is not an exhaustive thing. Seems like you're only talking about 3 things about infertility. Yes, and those 3 things are going to cover many, many bases. For the vast majority of women out there, I'm going to throw in a medical guess of saying that about 90% of the issues will likely be fixed with simply doing what we talk about here today. And that's a huge statement, though there are some complications and there's things that we could do that are more specific and probably more helpful, but I do not want to wish, or at least to add those here, because they tend to be something that does need to be monitored. So I'm going to go with mainstream things that I would do for just a random person that asked me a question off the street looking for some guidance. So here we go. Now, viable ova. So the egg itself, when the body is doing well and the nutrients are flowing, we have eggs that are doing quite well. Now, eggs being basically like a cell, we need to treat them just like any cell of your body. What do the cells of our body need? Now, with eggs, we need lots of good fats. For sure, absolutely. And I don't mean potato chips fried in crappy oil. I mean good fats like cod liver oil and good butter, even coconut oil, avocados, maybe a little olive oil if you actually know where it's coming from. If you have an expeller-pressed raw sesame seed oil, fine, but I would stay far away from the margarines, the canolas, the safflowers, the sunflowers, the mainstream oils that you're going to find, you'll want to veer way away from. Now, on that oil vein, we definitely want a full complement of fat-soluble vitamins, the A, D, E, and K variety. And we'll find most of those in raw dairy. Most of the dairy you're going to get in the store is not raw. It is pasteurized. Do not even bother. But if you have a raw source, great. Even raw aged cheese is phenomenal for vitamin K and D both. Now, cod liver oil is excellent for copious amounts of vitamin A as well as vitamin D. And so things like that can be super, super helpful when it comes to making sure that the membrane that the egg has around that genetic material is good, as well as the ovaries themselves are flexible, pliable, can do their job. If we have something like PCOS, we're definitely going to be thinking about zinc and copper into your diet one heck of a lot more. And so that beautiful zinc and copper are going to help hormone balance. They're going to help make sure that the ovaries are not forming cysts looking for more nutrients, because that's usually why a tissue will form a cyst, is it's going to try to process more blood and get the nutrients it's lacking. So let's just give it so that it doesn't do that anymore. that same zinc and copper are going to be coming from things like high vitamin C and things where trace minerals are in ample abundance, and therefore that's also going to tone down the inflammatory effect of the body and even help things like endometriosis. So we're going to fix some things at the same time that we're adding nutrients. Now, primitive cultures, which I can't even stand the word primitive because they're often way smarter and way more advanced and definitely not primitive. So maybe we should say, hey, more simplistic, down-to-earth living groups of people that have gone beyond the need for things in life and are just happy to be enjoying each other and themselves. Okay, those people we're talking about, they will actually have a period of time, women that are going to be getting pregnant, that they have this honoring of giving them what they would call sacred foods that are very high density, high potency foods, so that they can prepare their body to have wonderfully healthy, vibrant children. Now, what society would not want that for their mothers? So what are these vibrant, healthy, nutrient-dense, high-octane foods that we would recommend? Things like really fresh fruits and vegetables. I don't mean the stuff that you get in the store. I mean actually knowing the grower, knowing the farm that you would go to and actually get a box of freshly picked produce and go eat it or juice it. You would also consider liver on that list of high-potency foods. Even things like raw honey, blackstrap molasses, any organ meat is fair game. Sweet potatoes, excellent choices. These are things that you should be considering putting in your diet in droves. So if we focus on you, you're thinking, yeah, but I don't like all those foods. Well, the question remains, would you like a healthy infant that is easy to take care of and not one that requires 24/7 care because they're sick all the time or they're genetically malformed? I'm just saying. So, what else would we do for this particular viability and deficiencies? We would make sure that your digestive system is excellent and that you can put lots of protein in the system and amino acids to let this baby form things like bones and organs and skin and heart and brain and lungs and all that stuff that they need lots of protein for. So digestion is paramount. And then absorption of all that becomes really important. So your diet may need some correction before time. And that's where you'll find people talk about a GAPS diet, GAP. You might go look it up and read up on it. It may be very helpful to make sure your digestive system is of the utmost efficiency so that you can help this child have all that it needs from your body. And the GAPS diet would do that quite well. So those are some deficiencies that we're talking about. Let's move into things like traumas like abortions. What do we do when we have trauma? Well, unfortunately, trauma from an abortion is not just physical. There is probably some mental and emotional things going on in your mind. And if you are a well put together, you've fixed your head, you've had these things happen, then you don't need to do the repair mentally. But if you've had some abortions, you may need to do some mental support in some ways and digging into your own head and clearing away debris and forgiveness and allowing that to come to you in a most beautiful way. Let's move on. Let's heal. But the tissue itself, we may need some help there. So things like bone broth, calcium, magnesium, trace minerals, which we haven't talked about in other deficiency issues with fertility, now come into play here as we begin to allow those tissues to heal. This is where digestion will become even more paramount as well as pancreatic function. So reducing sugar and allowing enzyme activity in your body to be at an all-time high would be excellent in undoing scar tissue from trauma of a surgical intervention of that nature. So could you do extra enzymes? Of course. That's a possibility for things like trauma like abortions. Now, let's move on to our last thing, which is birth control pills as well as accutane. I mention these two chemicals specifically because birth control, as I've mentioned in other podcasts, is not regulating women's cycles. Birth control is dysregulation at its maximum. So if you have gone to the doctor and you have had trouble with your cycles because there are some deficiencies likely running in your body and maybe an overload of stress going on in your mind, then you may not have very regular cycles. But to give you birth control pill and tell you that this is going to regulate your cycles is a farce. Now, shut down your cycle completely, which is the ultimate of dysregulation, is probably what some of you are looking for. And while that is a possibility, it really isn't ideal for your body. And it's forcing it to do something that it doesn't like doing. Now, I get it. If your cycles are horrible and you're looking for some relief, I bet I would probably choose the pill too. This is not about shame and guilt and anything like that. I'm just trying to relay information so that you can at least have it to move on and do what you need to do. Now, I've seen birth control pill use over 8 years develop into pituitary tumors because of that dysregulation. And therein now is another complication of trying to get pregnant later on in life. So we would definitely want to be doing some things like completely cleaning your body when it comes to trying to re-regulate your cycle. Now, are you going to run out and start taking ovarian support? Probably not. That's probably not even on your radar. But I would definitely be putting you on some type of specific protomorphogen for the ovaries themselves to get them to repair and start re-regulating. But I would also want to include pituitary, thyroid, adrenal in that mix, and definitely hypothalamus, because those are your glands that you have dysregulated with the pill. So that is at least an idea of a beginning point of how to maybe come off the birth control pill and then begin to clean out your system. So a little bit of advice on cleaning. You're going to be working heavily on the gut and liver, just to let you know. They're the things that are going to really do all the cleaning. We would prefer not to lean on the lungs or the kidneys for cleaning. We'd rather do cleaning where cleaning is due, which is liver and bowel. So if you're going to do some things like that, I highly recommend you do some reading, or you give me a call or shoot me a line, and I'm happy to help you through that, or at least give you some ideas and point you in the right direction if that's all you're looking for. Now, lastly, accutane. Why accutane? If nobody out there knows what accutane is, all you have to do is look it up and say, "This sounds like vitamin A." And you'd be right. It's synthetic high-dose vitamin A. Now, this is highly absorbable, and there have been women that have been on accutane when they're pregnant. If you've done that, I'm sorry, but you're pregnant. Why are you taking a chemical from your doctor? I know you trust your doctor, but my gosh, can we just maybe not do a chemical in your body when you're pregnant? And it should be the doctor that should say, hey, you know what? We're not going to do this while you're pregnant, because they've done a lot of research on synthetic vitamin A and they think it might cause birth defects. But high-dose natural vitamin A from food doesn't seem to do that. So when anybody's on Accutane, they're constantly checking their blood for liver numbers that are elevated as well as kidney issues. If that doesn't give you a glaring red flag that you don't want to do that when you're pregnant, I don't know what will. So Accutane is really tough on the human body. I can't tell you how many young people that have acne and I say, look, instead of going on Accutane, will you trust me for just a little bit and go on a completely natural source, high vitamin A and vitamin C, so that we can get your body back in line and back on track and actually watch your skin begin to heal? And will you stop doing sugar so that you stop feeding your skin sugar and all the bacteria on your skin so there's an overgrowth and you get more acne? Let's just try a few simple things and see what we can accomplish. So my 2 cents on Accutane, and I've done podcasts on it before. Please grab those if you are considering it or if you are on it. So those are some ideas to work on when it comes to fertility issues. Yes, you do want to do trace minerals of a natural source, not synthetic or put together by some dirt or car parts. I giggle because chromium and iron, they use the crappiest source. So we would love to do something that is actually of a food-sourced trace mineral. We'd like to get some natural vitamin, components in you that are from food as well, something green specifically. Fruits and vegetables all included. And then, of course, liver is a fantastic nutrient-rich food, probably the richest on the planet. It literally takes an ounce, even a half ounce of liver a day would be phenomenal. In fact, that would supply most of your vitamin A. That would actually amp up your immune system and help it run correctly for those of you out there that are suffering with acne that want to do Accutane. You could do a natural source vitamin A like liver or sweet potatoes. But liver is the repository of the human body. It holds most of our nutrients. It is the health food store of the body. We do not allow nutrients to run out willy-nilly all over the place in high quantities. The liver keeps it under lock and key so that in case there is some type of bug that invades our body that is not so good, it doesn't have a lot of nutrient value to run amok. We can wrangle it, get it out of us, and restore our body to health like it was designed. So the liver is very important in keeping all the nutrients of our body. And so eating a healthy liver, nothing diseased, of any animal is an excellent, excellent idea. And like I say, a half ounce is usually plenty a day. If you want to go up to an ounce, fine. But even at 3 ounces of liver, it's something like 16,000 international units of vitamin A. And they say, anywhere from 8 to 10,000 is really good. Even though for women that are pregnant, it's ridiculously low. It's like 2,500. Hey, women who are pregnant shouldn't have 2,500 international units of vitamin A or more. They should stay under that. Well, accutane is way above that. So for those of you out there that have done accutane, please definitely do not do it when you're pregnant. Let's do something natural. They even show that the synthetic stuff is actually more absorbed than the food sourced. So when you're doing high food sources, know that you likely will not absorb quite all of that. And ultimately, they've even done tests up to 300,000 international units of vitamin A naturally and shown no birth defects in babies. So there's a lot of research out there opposed to each other, and you do need to look at all of it and then make a very good informed decision for yourself. And ask yourself, you know what? I think my body's pretty amazing. If I feed it natural whole foods, it's probably going to perform at just optimal and admirably. I don't need to worry about it. But if I do something synthetic, isn't that just a cause for concern right away anyways? I mean, we're just going to throw out some very simple concepts here and just altogether say, well, duh, of course that makes more sense. And it does. And of course, then the body says, hey, I can handle all this. You give me all the nutrients I'm supposed to have. If I get a little bit of an excess of one, I can handle that just fine. And I'll do just fine. You let me do my job, you do yours, says the body. So, as all things created equal, the body knows what it's going to do and what it needs to do and what it should do. Let's just let it do that and thank it every day of our life, which would probably be a wise move. So until next time, I'm Dr. Troy. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, please shoot me a line. I'd love to hear from you. And remember always, there is way more right with you than there is wrong with you.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Dr. Munson at 360-893-8586 or email him at chiroman@dr.com. That's chiroman@dr.com. Check out our current workshop schedule on Facebook at Infinity Whole Health.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.